Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Great America Show. Good to have you with us. Thanks for being here. President Trump and the defense has rested its case in the New York Alvin Bragg show trial. Closing arguments set for next Tuesday, with jury deliberations to begin shortly thereafter, in fact, the following day. Trump's defense only calling two witnesses to the stand, a legal analyst and former Cohen attorney Robert Costello. President Trump ultimately deciding not to take the stand, as it would really make absolutely no sense. The prosecution hasn't put anyone forward in their witnesses to make a case for a crime having been committed. This is illegitimate a prosecution as you'll ever see. And we learned all we needed to know after hearing testimony from Michael Cohen himself. The only criminal in the case is Cohen. The power now lies in the hands of those members of the jury to do the right thing and dismiss all 34 sham counts in this case. The prosecution didn't prove a single one of those counts in the case, and in just a few moments, we're going to be taking all of this up and much more with our guest today. Just the News editor-in-chief and founder, John Solomon, joins us. And World Economic Forum chairman and CEO and wannabe ruler of the free world, Klaus Schwab, is stepping down as executive chairman. In an email to the WEF staff members, Schwab announced that he would be stepping down, transitioning to a non-executive chairman job. Schwab, over the last few years, has gone off the rails more than he has over the past decades, most recently touting a great reset, replacing democratic governments worldwide with a structure that gives all power to the elites of the world. It's a great day for the world to see Schwab get out of town, the town being Davos. And speaking of dictators, the Biden regime has ordered a ban on all election betting markets. There are various sites across the internet where you can place a wager on who you think will win an election. Perhaps Biden is trying to ban the betting because the odds have been in Trump's favor for quite a long while now. And now joining us, Just the News founder and editor-in-chief and one heck of an investigative journalist throughout his career, John Solomon. John, good to see you. And
good to be with you, Lou.
Yeah. And it's a delight always to talk with you. Let's start with this crazy New York courtroom where this Marxist dim judge, Juan Merchan, is lost control yesterday. He lost control of himself before he lost control of the courtroom. He has to understand what a corrupt fool he looks like. Your thoughts?
Well, listen, it's going to be interesting to see how history will look back at this judge, what he may do in the next few days. There is a pending motion to dismiss the case on the grounds that the prosecution did not make its case. So we'll see where the judge goes with that. The defense has already rested, and why not? Your best witness was the prosecution witnesses. Michael Cohen gave more to the defense than he did to the prosecution. I hope Hicks had a great big moment for the president with her acknowledgement. This case did not go well for Alvin Bragg if you're wanting the jury to focus on the evidence and the truth. Now, it could be that Alvin Bragg from the beginning, since he campaigned on this, was really trying to just simply hope he gets a jury that will convict Trump because it's Donald Trump and not because the evidence does so. And it seems like he steamed in that direction with his strategy with Prosecutor Colangelo and others. They didn't put on a case that meet the legal merits. When you talk to all of the lawyers, by the way, Democrat lawyers are just as critical as conservative lawyers about this. And he didn't really seem to care that Michael Cohen was as lacking in credibility as any witness I've ever seen appear for a prosecution case. He lied. He cheated. He was a thief. He stole, right? Yeah. He's a felon, a liar, and a thief all in 1 week. We got all that out. I just don't know how the jury looks at him and takes him credibly. And then you have these extraordinary, I call them O.J. Simpson, glove doesn't fit, you must acquit moments in the trial. One of those is when they play the tape. There's a tape that Michael Cohen makes of his client. Odd for a lawyer to be taping his client. All right, but he did it. And in that, Donald Trump seems to be completely unaware of what Michael Cohen's talking about related to the hush money payment. He's going like, what financing? And you can hear Michael Cohen on the tape saying, I've got this, I'm doing it, which is exactly what the Trump defense is, which is Michael Cohen did this on his own, and Trump was really not aware of it. The tape kind of leaned in that direction for the jury. That's going to be one of those O.J. Simpson glove moments. And then I think there are other instances in the trial where prosecution witnesses undercut the entire theory of the case. The theory of the case is Donald Trump was trying to violate an election law by lying to the American people and hiding the allegations of an affair. And one of the key prosecution witnesses is Hope Hicks. And she comes in and said, no, that's not what Donald Trump was worried about. He was worried about embarrassing his wife, Melania. It had nothing to do with the campaign. That's a prosecution witness undercutting the prosecution's clearly stated theory at the beginning of the case. I just don't know how the jury processes all of this and comes up with a verdict of guilty. I think it's highly likely that he could either be acquitted or a hung jury, but we'll see. I mean, history will soon tell us whether Bragg's political show gets a conviction or whether it ends up in some other form. I think the evidence suggests, from all the legal experts I've talked to, that there should be acquittal.
Yeah, this is as a matter of fact, the people I respect that I've talked with about this, John, said it should never have been brought.
Exactly.
Cyrus Vance vindicated and twice refusing to bring this case.
That's right.
Alvin Bragg even refusing once to bring the case. And not until the White House interceded and deposited Colangelo, the number 3 guy in the Justice Department, in Alvin Bragg's Inquisition operation in Manhattan, did it happen. And Colangelo, by the way, looks like he should have been number 30 or 40 in the Justice Department, not number 3. He doesn't look very bright here.
Yeah, listen, the entire prosecution profession doesn't look bright as a result of this and some of the things you see in Jack Smith's case too. Remember, a few weeks ago, Jack Smith had to admit that they tampered with the evidence, that they didn't keep the order of the documents in the boxes they seized from Mar-a-Lago straight, which means they're now jumbled. I mean, that's like prosecution 101. You always keep the evidence in the state that you seized it from. So when you look at the 4 prosecutions that have been targeting President Trump, Georgia, you got an affair going on and possible conversion of money assets to or taxpayer money to sustain the affair. You got contacts with the White House. You've got coordination between White House and NARA to sick the FBI on Donald Trump in the classified documents case. I think the entire justice system, at least the prosecutorial discretion part of the system, looks totally corrupted, whether you're sitting in Manhattan listening to the trial or sitting in the Florida courtroom looking at the classified documents or watching the charade that just went on with Fani Willis in Georgia. I think it's even larger than just Alvin Bragg. The 4 Democratic big guns of prosecution all look pretty unsophisticated, look pretty political. In some cases, they look like they're not doing the job that we expect our prosecutors to do in this country.
You know, John, one of the many things I admire about you is your measured language and expression. I think those prosecutors, those federal prosecutors, every one of them looks like a damned idiot. I think every one of them looks like a crooked damn idiot, a politically corrupt, crooked damn idiot.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that this country is putting up with this nonsense. Now, it's one thing for a Alvin Bragg, who obviously doesn't know one end of his anatomy from another, or Fani Willis, who knows too well the anatomy of her lead prosecutor. I mean, when you go through this list of sorry individuals, irrespective of their profession, these people should not even be practicing law, let alone, humming a few bars to it.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's funny. You used the term idiots. I've had Democrats behind the scenes talking to me saying they thought that these prosecutions were idiotic, that they thought there were much better cases when they went with them. Like, oh my God, this is embarrassing. There are Democrats that have the same sentiments. This is a big problem for the strategy that Joe Biden and his gang ensued after 2021 to try to pin down the president in these criminal cases, the former president in these criminal cases. They're backfiring, and you see Democrats as nervous about the cases as conservatives are angry about them, that usually tells you that when both sides are agreeing that something bad has happened here. I worry for the long-term consequences of our country's willingness to accept the court system and prosecutors going forward. There's a real danger that something that set us apart from every other country in the world, our jurisprudence system, that we're losing that extraordinary gift that our founding fathers gave us because of a short-term desire by Democrats to weaponize and turn prosecutions political. I think there's some long lens impacts for what the Joe Biden regime has done here.
Yeah, and what the Joe Biden regime, I couldn't agree with you more. The Joe Biden regime, the Marxist Dems political party that went after these hapless prisoners of ideological warfare in the DC gulags now, from overcharged, over-sentenced by the judicial system in DC. There just isn't any bright spot right now in the criminal justice system anywhere, because the Marxist Dems have gone absolutely agents of chaos, and obviously insistent upon an outcome that is always that of the Marxist Dems and the hell with America.
People will say, well, is this random? Are they just taking the answers? No, it's actually been strategically plotted out. You go back to 2016, that's when George Soros and other big donors started to invest in, we want to get our own prosecutors at the local level, people like Fani Willis and Alvin Bragg into positions so that they can do our bidding. They created a pact to do this. They lobbied to do it. One of the prosecutors that won early on, I tangled with a lot in Missouri, because she had pursued a Republican governor on a case that turned out to be entirely bogus. This was planned for many years, and we're seeing the manifestation of that plan in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 different prosecutors who've been elected with big liberal money to do exactly what they're doing right now. And then now it's seeped into the Justice Department. And there's the revolving door, right? You got a guy going from Alvin Bragg to the Justice Department. People look at this and say, this is not America's justice system. This doesn't look like America right now.
And frankly, it isn't America right now. And in large measure, thanks to the billions of dollars that George Soros and other large donors in the Democrat Party have made available. I mean, you look at George Soros, you go back to his Secretary of State task force that he decided to put in favorable secretaries of state, anticipating by a decade what would unfold in these elections started in 2016. We're talking with John Solomon of Just the News. We're coming right back, and you don't want to miss a word of what John Solomon has to say here next. Stay with us.
Wellness Company and their doctors are medical professionals you can trust. And their new medical emergency kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. This medical emergency kit contains an assortment of life-saving medications, including ivermectin, Z-Pak. Rest assured, knowing that you have emergency antibiotics, antivirals, and antiparasitics on hand to help you and your family stay safe from whatever life throws at you next.
We're back now. We're talking with Just the News, John Solomon. And John, let's talk about Fani Willis, because it's hard to resist because of the absurdity of it, the degradation of what we witnessed, the degradation of Fani Willis. It was self-degradation, if I can put it that way, degradation.
Sure.
This is just ignorance writ large across Fulton County. It makes Fulton County look like one of the most corrupt counties in the country. Indeed, I think they are. Your thoughts?
Well, I think a lot of people looked at the 2020 election and what we learned 3 years after it. I wrote some stuff right away in 2021. I got the auditor's report, and contrary to what we were told, Fulton County was a hot mess of an election. And just a few weeks ago, it was finally confirmed that they double scanned some ballots during their audit, and they lost, I think, tens of thousands of ballot images, something you just don't do in basic elections. So we've known Fulton County has a basic competence issue it starts with its election, but it now has gone over into the law enforcement community. Fulton County Jail has one of the most unsafe conditions in the world right now. A lot of investigations going on there. And now you got a prosecutor who openly had an affair with a special prosecutor she brought in. They're taking trips. They're having, at least one of them is having contacts with the Biden White House while they're pursuing one of their targets, Donald Trump. And I think people say, well, this goes beyond incompetence. That looks kind of crooked. That looks kind of wrong. We don't like this. We don't expect we expect a prosecutor not to have affairs with their subordinate staff. We expect taxpayer money to be accounted for. We don't expect the opposition White House to be in contact with the prosecutors going after the Republican nominee. I think what started as, well, Fulton County's kind of got an incompetence or a competency problem. Now it's got a competency and corruption problem. And I think Fani Willis particularly creates that aura, that concern among voters. Now, that said, she'll probably win the primary tonight and be on course to be the chief prosecutor again. What message does that mean? It means that a large number of the voters in Fulton County and the Atlanta area don't seem to care about these issues that maybe create integrity in the prosecution system. But the road ahead for Fani Willis is extraordinarily uncomfortable. There's an appeals court investigation that could reverse or kick her off the case. There's a Georgia legislature investigation that's beginning to dig up important information and evidence. And then you've got Jim Jordan, perhaps one of the best investigators that Congress has right now at the Judiciary Committee, demanding documents. And I think when people get those documents, and I'm sure we'll get them at some point, you're going to see that the Biden White House was in contact with the prosecution team. I've already proven that happened in the classified documents case. We've gotten those documents a year ago, and we've got new documents recently. But I think Atlanta, New York, and maybe the January 6th investigation, you're going to see continued contacts of the Biden White House there. That's going to make a lot of Americans feel very uncomfortable. We don't expect us to act like a banana republic prosecution team. We expect politics to stay out, and when your enemy is being investigated, you're supposed to stay out of it. Let the professionals do it. But Joe Biden's White House seems to have had its finger in the drink of 2, 3, maybe all 4 of these prosecutions, and that's not going to be something Americans are going to be proud of when we have it all exposed.
Yeah, I would say, John, that right now the American people are aware of that.
Yeah.
There's no question that there's no trust in the judicial system. There is no trust in the legal profession. There is, and poll after poll shows it, and there shouldn't be. I mean, the reality is, what is there that is the bright, shining temple of justice? Where is truth, justice, and the American way? Our traditions, our values are being trampled by Marxist Dems. It's the Democrat Party that put 2 inept candidates forward, one of them cognitively impaired, and the other about whom there are great questions. And I'm talking about, of course, Kamala Harris as vice president, Joe Biden as president. Really, we're supposed to trust any Democrat for any reason now? It's outrageous. Yes, we're a third world country. As long as you're talking about the Marxist Dems, you're talking about major cities run by Marxist Dems, and you're talking about the Biden regime and a national corporate media that is sold out to one ideological view.
Yeah. And I think when people go back and they wind back in their mind, how did this all start? It started with at least 2 prosecutors openly campaigning, saying, if you elect me, I will go and prosecute the opposition party leader, Donald Trump. That is something that has to make us all feel very uncomfortable, because that's what happens in Latin America, banana republics. That's what happens in corrupt former Soviet republics. And now it's happening on our shores in front of our eyes in some of America's most famous and big cities. And I think that's why so many people, when you look at the polling data, say they believe that Joe Biden was simply trying to get Donald Trump put in prison before the election. They believe that the government has been weaponized against its citizenry. The core beliefs that are showing up in all these different polls, many polls that are showing it, are rooted in, we've actually seen prosecutors who literally said, elect me so that I can go after your favorite political enemy. I elect me and I'll have an affair with my prosecutor. Elect me and I'll have contacts with the White House, even though they should be out of this. Those are really remarkable thresholds that in past history, America hasn't crossed before. This is a really consequential time.
There's one institution that stands above them all, that has the power, the authority, indeed the responsibility to clean up these corrupt courts, these corrupt prosecutors, and that is the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court.
Yeah.
You don't hear a word from them. They're testing whether or not immunity is a word that should apply to the president. Only, I believe, a blind fool would think, and as a witness to all that is happening in all the jurisdictions you enumerated, the corrupt persecutions, how could the Chief Justice not intercede and demand immunity for the President of the United States?
Well, listen, I think when you listen to the arguments that played out a few weeks ago, I think there was a majority of the justices that believe the president does, a president, no matter who he is, Joe Biden or Donald Trump or anyone, past and present or future, they do enjoy immunity for their official actions. And I think what's going to happen in that case, and what they signaled will happen in that case, is they're going to send it back and say, all right, prosecutors, official things that happen that are official actions taken by president, they are covered by immunity. You have to go back now and try to convince us which acts that Donald Trump took are not official action. Then we're going to look at that very suspiciously, because we have a broad interpretation of what constitutes an official act. What does that mean? It means it's going to delay the trial so well after the election, and so well after we know who the next president is. But more importantly, it's going to force prosecutors who sort of had a run of the place, right? No one's really challenged them, to go back and say, all right, when Donald Trump gave a speech as the president of the United States, driving in the presidential limo, he wasn't acting as a president when he gave that speech. Well, how do you make that argument? When the president put documents in a box while he was still commander-in-chief, while he was getting his daily classified briefings, he put them in a box that went in the closet, and then some guy in a taxpayer-funded staffer took that box and happened to ship it to Mar-a-Lago, that wasn't an official act. I think when prosecutors have to go and try to make the argument at the threshold that the Supreme Court's probably going to set, some of their arguments are going to look pretty silly, and some of the judges downstream from the Supreme Court's going to say, well, if he took a presidential limo, he gave a speech, how is that not an official act? And I think that's where the prosecutors are going to find their first great moment of Pepsi, when the Supreme Court kicks this back and tells them, sort this out for us. You tell us what you think are private acts and why you think they're private. It's going to be pretty tough for them to make that case.
The President of the United States, John, in my opinion, and I was taught this as an undergraduate in school, very simple. Until you convene the business of the Senate, the House of Representatives, or a judge brings down the gavel, this is not official business. Yeah. And in nearly every respect, the gavel is always down. The president's duties are always convened and underway. He's 24/7 president of the United States. He's unlike any other official, and everyone is working hard to ignore that basic fundamental reality of our system. We're talking with John Solomon. We're going to get his views on all of this right after these very important words. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Wellness Company and their doctors are medical professionals you can trust. And their new medical emergency kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. This medical emergency kit contains an assortment of life-saving medications, including ivermectin, Z-Pak. Rest assured, knowing that you have emergency antibiotics, antivirals, and antiparasitics on hand to help you and your family stay safe from whatever life throws at you next.
And we're back with John Solomon and Just the News founder, editor-in-chief. And let's talk about a number of developments here. This administration is hell-bent on destroying this country. I think everyone with any reason or knowledge understands that that's the case. It is also clearly aligned with international forces at work, in which we watch the World Health Organization want to subsume the Centers for Disease Control, NIH, all public health authorities as well. And the Biden administration is just cheering them on. Your thoughts about what we're witnessing here?
I think for a long time, people talked about Democrats want to create a global world order where the United States is just part of a larger global government. And we hear globalism, globalism, globalism. And it's all true. We see it every year with the World Economic Forum. We see it in the Obama foreign policy agenda and now Joe Biden's agenda. But in the last 48 hours, I think we have really begun to understand that globalism has moved beyond an academic theory, beyond a book, beyond a conference with elitists in Davos. It actually now is beginning to infringe on our life and our liberties and our perception of whether the United States can act on its own when it's in its national interest. The first came yesterday with the ICC, the International Criminal Court, seeking an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu for presiding over a war against a terrorist organization. That's basically what they're arresting him for. And if you take what he's accused of and you think of, well, how many times in history have U.S. attacks gone errant? You know, we meant to kill a terrorist, but accidentally we hit some civilians. This could be applied to any past or future president. It could be applied to any past, current, or future member of our military. That this globalist body will decide as judge, juror, and jury that you can't do or you can do what's in your national interest to protect your sovereign borders or to protect against mortal threats like Hamas. So now people are realizing, wait a second, if Israel's prime minister can be arrested for just conducting a war against a legitimate terrorist organization that did unspeakable acts to women and children and people on October 7th, what does that mean for the United States? That's the first wake-up call. The second wake-up call is people are now beginning to get educated. Enough people are talking about what you've been talking about for a long time, Lou, what I've been talking about for a long time. The World Health Organization, which basically got almost every aspect of the 2020 pandemic wrong, they now are making changes to their country agreements that would basically say in the future, the United States would have to follow the World Economic Forum's declarations on a public health emergency, which could be a pandemic, but maybe someday, as they have tried, the World Health Organization wants to call climate change a crisis or gun violence a health crisis. Now, all of a sudden, the United States, with all of its liberties, with all of its constitutional protections that our founding fathers, would suddenly say, well, those don't matter because we have to agree to what the World Economic Forum says. And let's boil that down. It isn't just a battle between the World Economic Forum and the sovereign decision-making of the United States. The World Health Organization now wants to say, we are going to insinuate ourselves into your John Solomon, Lou Dobbs, doctor-patient relationship. We're not going to let your doctor make choices that his medical degree and his personal knowledge or her personal knowledge of your health warrants. We're going to tell them our cookie cutter is better. When people realize that that's what's at stake in these upcoming amendments that the Biden administration, by the way, helped draft and is pushing, I think people are going to wake up and say, hey, that's not for me. That's not America. But that's not my family. I'm not going to let some foreign bureaucrat who might come from China someday or some other hostile country decide what shot and medicine I get and don't get. I think the last couple of weeks, people have woken up that globalism isn't some hypothetical term that academics and talk show hosts talk about. It actually is impacting my life. And I think Joe Biden is the manifestation upon which they're likely to take out their anger and their frustration with. This doesn't feel like America. Again, we've been saying that all throughout this interview. This isn't America right now.
It isn't, and it's because of a one party, the Marxist Dems. It's not a two-party problem. It's a one-party problem, and I think it's going to be a problem that will be hanging around their heads for many election cycles to come, because this is inescapable from public attention and understanding of the voters, in large measure thanks to the work of John Solomon and Just the News. John, great talking with you. I thank you so much and look forward to our next chat already.
Thanks, Lou. Always an honor to be with you. Really is.
Thanks, everybody, for being with us. Be sure to join us here tomorrow for the Great America Show. Our guest will be Harvey Reich, Chief Epidemiologist at the Wellness Company. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Truth Social at Lou Dobbs, and on Facebook and Instagram at Lou Dobbs Tonight. Please join us each and every weeknight for Lou Dobbs Tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central, on Frank Speech, Rumble, X, Roku, you name it, a whole bunch of platforms. Thanks, everybody. God bless you, and may God bless America.